Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Grief Talks with Noelle. And I am just delighted that you chose to click on this link and open this video and watch it again. I'm not a professional, not a doctor, not a licensed clinical anything, but I'm just someone who's going through this thing called grief. And I've just been honored to share with you what I've been learning, what I've picked up along the way. Everyone has a unique process, there's no cookie cutter form or anything like that. There's no manual for how to journey through your grief, but I've learned that there are some painful, ugly commonalities in this process. And so I aim to touch on one of those commonalities every single week with this YouTube channel and just share what I've learned and hopefully offer some optimism and a little light on the perspective as well. I'll never leave you in despair. I know I talk about some heavy things and I do a lot of, digging emotionally with this channel, but that's the point. I want you to kind of dig up some of the things that you may have even suppressed and hopefully take a new perspective on them. So I'll never leave you in the pit of your despair. I'll never leave you crying without giving you some type of a little bit of hope and hopefully a new perspective on what we're all feeling. So today's topic is actually inspired by an email that I received. So shout out to the individual who emailed me and asked me to talk about this specific topic. You can do that if you want to email me, Grief Talks with Noelle. If there's at gmail.com, if there's something specific that you want me to talk about, I'll certainly read your email and I'll write you back, and I'll definitely take into consideration exploring your topic. This was something that I already had on my list of things to talk about, but this person sending me the email really confirmed that this is what I'm supposed to talk about today. So here we go. Today's topic is caring for those who remain. Caring for those who remain. The person that emailed me is dealing with loss, the loss of a sibling, and this person is concerned about how to care for their grieving parent during the loss of a sibling. Loss is it's just horrible to deal with. And unfortunately, if you have not gone through it yet, just sit tight because it affects all of us. So I'm going to give 5 tips during this grief talk today that are universal and that will help you in general for caring for anyone who still remains. So the dynamics might differ. It might be, you might be a parent who is caring for a child. You may have lost your child and you might be caring for that another child that is still living as they're dealing with the loss of their sibling. Or you might be a child who's caring for your parent. Maybe your parent lost their sibling. Or you might be a spouse who's trying to care for your spouse after the loss of their loved one. So the dynamics might differ, but I aim to give you 5 tips, I guess, if you will, that are so common and so universal that they can be reciprocated regardless of the dynamic that you're dealing with. So again, today's topic is caring for those who remain. Again, thank you to the person that emailed me. Okay, so it's no secret that my mom and I have been trudging through this process together. In episode 1, I go through the dark and gory details of what happened in our lives on December 19th, 2018. And I share about my father and how exactly he passed away and the sudden nature of his passing. And my mom and I were right there when everything happened. I do have family, we're not alone, but people don't really live in this area too much. So my mom and I were right there in the room when the doctor came in and told us broke our hearts and shattered our worlds forever. It was just the two of us. Eventually my uncle and my aunt and a family friend did eventually join us at the hospital, but when we got the news initially, it was just the two of us. And for, I'd say, 90% of our lives now, it's pretty much the two of us every single day. My parents and I, my mom, my dad, and myself were a unit, especially for the last 6 years or so after my brother, my beloved brother, hi brother, if you're watching, if you're gonna, I don't know. But anyway, my brother moved to Georgia, he and his lovely bride. And since that time, it had really just been my mom, my dad, and myself. We were a unit. Everywhere that I pretty much went, they were with me. Everywhere that they pretty much went, I was there. And that's just how life was. And it was my honor to really take care of them and to help them during their lives. And it's still my honor to help my mom and to be close to her and to just do everything that I can to just assist her through this process. And it's not just me assisting her, she is assisting me. I tell her all the time, like, I need you just as much as, you need me right now. We're really leaning on each other to get through this. So I'm honored to talk about this in particular because it hits so close to home. Caring for those who remain. You don't want to just focus on the loss of your loved one and forget about those who are still here. And you have to be sensitive to the fact that those who remain are grieving as well. And the loss of your loved one is so tremendous. It's going to impact people differently. So it's important that you are sensitive to the needs of your other loved ones as well as they're grieving. They're hurting as well, just like you are. It might be different. It might be affecting them differently, but they are hurting as well. So I'm going to give you 5 universal tips tonight that will help you care for a loved one who is still here, regardless of the dynamic of your relationship with them. Okay. So tip number 1 is very simply to stay close to them. Watch them and stay close to them. I can't think of anything more heartbreaking than someone having to go through this process by themselves. As cloudy and just uncomfortable and chaotic as the grieving process is, I can't imagine what it would be like if I had to go through this by myself, especially if I was still living in the house where my fallen loved one used to live, and they were part of my everyday life. And then now I have to try to figure this out all by myself. My heart breaks for those who might have to do that. So if it's at all possible for you, as you're caring for your loved ones who remain, stay close to them. Physically, if possible. I don't know if you can move in with them or you can move them in with you, or if you happen to already live with them, but keep a watchful eye on your loved ones who remain. And it doesn't mean that anything's going to necessarily happen, but it's good to be protective. There's comfort in feeling like someone is there watching you. Like I like knowing that my mom is close to me and that she's keeping an eye on me. And I know that she likes knowing that I'm close to her as well, and I'm keeping an eye on her. She's the only parent that I have remaining right now, and so I might be a little stalkerish at times. There's not really anywhere that she goes that I don't go these days, and vice versa. And we like it that way for now. So I keep a watchful eye on her, and she's doing as best as she can right now. But I am right there. I don't let anybody get too close to her, especially in church environments. I don't play that. I don't let anybody get too close to her. There is a woman that is notorious for making trouble in our lives. And she was talking to my mother one day at church, and I was watching from afar, from about maybe 20 feet away. I was watching, and the longer she talked to my mother, the closer I started to inch towards where they were, and sooner or later I was right there, and I just kind of guided my mother away. Okay, that's enough. So I keep a watchful eye on her, not because she's in danger, but just because I like letting her know that I'm trying to protect her, and I'm here with her. Like I said, physical presence is sometimes half the battle. Well, not always, but it really means a lot. That's what I should say instead. Physical presence means a lot. So staying physically close to that loved one, you don't even have to talk sometimes, but just them knowing that someone is there, especially in this time in their life where nothing makes sense and their entire world has been shaken, and even a companion that they relied on being there, who always used to be there, is now gone. And so your physical presence, don't be oppressive, but your physical presence can really help them. So watch them and stay close, and keep an eye open for any unusual behavior. New behavior is not unusual, but just keep an eye open for anything that might appear detrimental or anything like that. And you know them well enough to know what that might be. So tip number 1 is to watch them and stay close to them. Tip number 2 is do not rush them to do pretty much anything. Don't rush them to change things. And this is something that reciprocates between my mom and myself. There are commemorative things, memorial things that we have up in the house, that I put up in the house to honor my dad, and they've been there for a while. And I do not have any direct desire to change them anytime soon, and my mom supports that, and I support her desire to want to keep anything that is the way that it is, not in a weird way, not in a way that's detrimental to our mental state, but in a way that honors my dad. And we will do those things, we'll change those things. Your loved one who remains will change those things as they feel ready. Do not push them, do not rush them. Well, any time for you to change this, well, you got to do this, you got to take this down, get rid of their clothes. Don't be that person, but instead lovingly support them, and do not rush them to change things, whether it's a status on Facebook, whether it's a whatever. Do not rush them to change anything before they're ready. Okay, so that's tip number 2. Everyone has to move at their own pace through this process. Do not rush them as they're feeling their way through the darkness. This is the most blinding and unpredictable thing that they will ever have to deal with. Loss is dreadful, and you've got to give them time to feel their way through this. Okay, so that's tip number 2. Do not rush them to change things. Tip number 3 is listen and respond. There might be times where they want to talk about your loved one, or it might be times when you want to talk about your loved one, and it's important that you each listen to each other and respond. You might have a moment together where you're just emotional and you're crying, and that's okay. My mom and I have shared many of those moments together. I used to hide from her for the first maybe 6 months or so, when I would have my emotional moments of grief, and I would just be crying hysterically. I would hide from her because I didn't want to be a bring down. I didn't want to, if she seemed to be doing all right at the moment, I didn't want to just cry hysterically in front of her, because I didn't want to just be a killjoy. But she told me that it helps her to see that, to see me going through the emotions that I go through, and it helps me to see her do that as well, because then I'm able to be there for her, she's able to be there for me. So in the event that your loved one who remains wants to have an emotional session or wants to talk about how they're feeling, stop what you're doing if at all possible. If you're driving, you can't stop if you're driving, but turn the music off. Give them your undivided attention for that time. Listen to them and respond. Cry together, hug each other, whatever you have to do. Support them as they're feeling those feelings, because I say all the time, you've got to talk about how you're feeling. So if your loved one who remains wants to talk about your fallen loved one, then listen and respond as they do so. Tip number 4 is respect independence. What I mean by that is, as time goes on, your loved one who remains might start to develop an interest in wanting to do things for themselves. And this is something that I had to grow into, because like I told you, I'm kind of a stalker when it comes to my mom. So I wanted to drive her everywhere. I wanted to carry everything. I wanted to do everything. I didn't want her to have to lift a finger at all. And I was like that, like feverishly like that, for I'd say at least the first 4 or 5 months after my dad passed. And then as time went on, she would say to me, well, I'm going to go to the store. And okay, well, let me get myself together so I can go with you. And no, I can go. I got it. So I realized it was important for me to back up a little bit and to let her do those things, because she's trying to just, I guess, reshape her world right now. And so any displays of independence, be it going to the store, running errands, or whatever, I had to learn to respect that. It didn't mean she didn't want me there. It just meant that she wanted to do it herself. And that's a good thing. So I had to just learn to kind of deal with that. Respect their independence as they display it. And tip number 5, the 5th one, is quietly celebrate their attempts at new. What I mean by that is when they try new things, or they do something that maybe they didn't do before. It could be something as simple as trying a food that they wouldn't try. It could be they're wearing a color that they never used to wear before. They're trying a hairstyle or a nail polish color. I don't know. Anything that is kind of not what they used to do, quietly celebrate that. What I mean by quietly celebrate is that don't, pull out the streamers and balloons and just make big fanfare and bravado about it. No, don't bring that much attention to it. Just, if your loved one tries something different, does a new hairstyle or whatever, just, oh, you look nice, or I noticed that you changed your hair. Boom, ended that. Acknowledge that you see it, and quietly celebrate their attempt at trying to regain control of this world that doesn't make any sense, trying to make sense of this nonsense new world. So anytime they do something that celebrates or that embraces or that is leaning towards new, last week I talked about all things new. Make sure you check out that episode as well, so you can know what I mean. But support that, celebrate that quietly, let them know that you're there. Okay? Those are the 5 tips. Stay close and watch. Do not rush them. Listen and respond, respect independence, and celebrate quietly and support when they try something new. That is how, in my opinion, my unprofessional opinion of how you care for those who remain. Most importantly, show them love. no matter what. Okay, so that's our episode for tonight. I didn't cry tonight. Yay! I've been pretty emotional the past few weeks, but no tears tonight. So thank you so much for tuning in and listening. And I hope that this was helpful to you. Like, comment, share, and I'll be back next week. And let's keep talking. Bye-bye.